Hi Web Leaders, we are so excited to have you teach another lesson to your 6th grade advisory. So it'll be coming up pretty soon, so make sure that you are checking the classroom for the lesson plan, and hopefully also this video will help review the lesson. So what you're going to do is make sure, first of all, that you're wearing your web shirt, most important thing. And then when you get to your advisory, I want you to go ahead and set it up in this fashion. So you're going to have 2 teams. So make sure to strategically divide your advisory into 2 equal teams. And if a web leader needs to participate to equal out the teams, that's fine. And once you've established those teams, what I want you to do is set up 2 different lines for those 2 teams and either have them sit on chairs or have them sit on the floor, facing each other. So each team member faces the other team, the 2 lines facing each other. So that's the setup. Once you've got that all set up and you've closed the door to your advisory and you're all ready to go, I want you to first just check in with your advisory. Take a couple minutes to do that, talk with them, engage with them. And then afterwards, you're going to want to introduce the lesson. And the lesson is simply this. The purpose of it is this: to talk about working well together. And so in life, you're going to want to tell them and talk with them about how they can't always choose their teams. They can't always choose the teams on their sports teams. They can't choose the students that are on their school teams. Sometimes they can't choose the group participants that they want in their own groups. And certainly they can't choose their teachers. And so that happens in life when we have to find a way to work well together. And so then you're going to introduce an activity for them to practice working well together, which is called Penny Squeeze Relay. And this is how it works. Now, if one of the web leaders is participating in the game, great. If they are not, they can act as the scorer, and I'll tell you about scoring a little bit later. One web leader is going to give the directions for this game, and they will stand in the front of the line. Now, the front of the line needs to be established, and so they will stand in the front of the line, and they will be holding a penny in their hand. They will find that in their supply bag. And then in the back of the line, you will have to have a grab item, which looks like this, also in the supply bag. And the grab item will have to be placed on a chair in between the 2 lines where it's easy for the 2 back people to grab that item. So just be aware of that. If someone is scoring, they can of course stand right next to the board in order to tally up the points or take score. And then lastly, the thing that you want them to do is, before you start the activity, is have each team member hold hands with the other. Now, if they don't feel comfortable holding hands, that's okay. You can do what we call as web pinkies. You might remember this from orientation. So they can link pinkies, and that's fine too. So what will happen is when the web leader starts the game, the way that they start is that the 2 front people are called lookers. So as the web leader will flip the coin, if it lands on heads, the lookers in the front of the line will look to see if it's landed on heads, and if that's the case, they will send a signal non-verbally, so there's no talking in this game. They will send a signal to the back of the line so that the grabbers, the back of the line, can try to grab the grab item and be the first ones to grab the grab item. Now, the way they're going to be sending the signal is through their hands. So if they're holding their hands together or if they're linking pinkies, then what they're going to want to do is they're going to want to squeeze the pinky or squeeze the hand in order to communicate that the back person needs to grab the grab item. If the penny lands on tails, then no signal should be sent. All right, so again, if it lands on heads, a signal should be sent non-verbally through their hands. And if it lands on tails, no signal should be sent. Now, the way a team earns a point is if they successfully communicate non-verbally to the back person, and that back person is the first one to grab the item, they earn a point. Now, if it lands on tails, but by accident the team sends a signal to the back person, well, then they lose a point. So again, the web leader, if there is a web leader free to score, then they can keep track of that score that way. Now, once a round is done, which basically means that once there is one time when the penny lands on heads, then what will happen is the person in the front will actually move to the back of the line, and then each person will move forward so that another person can be the looker and another person can be the grabber. So do make sure that you play a few rounds of this so that then a lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of people can have a turn to be a looker as well as a grabber. Now, if you have time, and be aware of the time, but if you have time, maybe you can get everyone to be a looker and a grabber so that they experience all those different roles. So once they are done with this activity, you're going to want to talk with them about the activity so they can process it. Ask them questions based on the lesson plan that you see there, which are questions like, what were the different roles? And remember, there is the role of the looker and the grabber, but there's also the roles of people who play in the middle. What is their role? And explain to them too that, each person has a role, but try to get them to talk about, what makes it so difficult for each of those roles to work together, and why does communication end up breaking down. So really have them talk and explore these different things and the challenges that we have in working together. You might also want to come up with your own questions, but do think of those questions beforehand so that then you're prepared the day of the lesson. Aside from that, that's pretty much the lesson, and certainly this video is hopefully helpful, but of course if you want to reach out to us to ask any questions, feel free to. You can email us or you can talk with one of us about it. And your supply bags will be in the 6th grade advisory before the lesson, the day of the lesson. At the end of the lesson, do make sure to return the chairs to where they're supposed to be, and make sure the classroom is set up back to the way the teacher wants it to be, and be the last to leave. So make sure that you are fist bumping or giving high fives. Make sure you're smiling, saying goodbye to them, and do make sure, last but not least, to return the supply bags. And so that's about it for the lesson. I hope this has been helpful, and I hope you do have fun with it. And we'll talk to you soon.